Our learning intention is to be able to determine an association between two variables on something called a two-way table. Met the term two-way tables before? Well, I'll make sure that you know what they are, and also what I mean by association, and also what I mean by variables. In fact, we're going to start talking about variables because they're the first thing that we need to understand. So take notes. Make sure you've got something down about two-way tables, something about association between variables, and something about types of variables. You met types of variables in Year 11. Types of variables. Do you remember the difference between numerical and categorical variables? Yes, so you're right. There's numerical and categorical variables. Numerical as in numbers, whether they're integers or decimals. And categorical, so I'll write some examples up here. Very slow to catch up with this, isn't it? Numbers and categories. And so if you ask somebody a question which doesn't have a number answer, it's got a word answer, then the answers are categories, and you usually give them an option. One example is yes or no. Are you a yes in the yes category, or are you in the no category? Are you male or female or other? Are you, is your favourite colour red, blue, green, yellow or other? Are you whatever? These are categories, and so they're not numbers. And so you can't really put them on things like scatter plots, the results of the survey. Scatter plots are no good for categorical variables, so we have two-way tables, as you will see. So there is a typical, simple two-way table. It's two-way because it's got horizontal and vertical information on it. No other reason. You can have a table with more than one category, more than two categories either way. So you could have LGBTIQ, whatever. You could have for, against, not sure. You don't have to have just two of each. It's nothing. Two-way tables, nothing to do with two categories. It's to do with two rows and columns. That's the result of a survey. Now you need to be able to interpret a two-way table. So how many people were asked the question? About 100 people. That's in the bottom right. How many men were asked the question? How many people were against? Okay, so the totals are there, 38 against, whatever. The question was, can you tell, that was a survey, 100 people, can you tell anything, can you come to any conclusion about the difference between men and women in regards to their attitude towards gun control, just by looking at those numbers? Would you say that that proves that women are more or less against gun control, just looking at those numbers? We've got 32 men and 30 women, all for it. Well, why, putting the question another way, why would it be difficult to come to a conclusion from those numbers? Difference is not that big. Okay, difference is not that big, that's interesting. One of the issues is that there were more men asked the question than women, is that right? Yeah, 58 against 42. So what you do, before you actually try and come to any conclusion about what's in that table, is you turn all these numbers into percentages. So we don't write down 32 people, or 32 men were for it. We say 32 out of 58 as a percentage were men. 26 out of 58 as a percentage. 32 divided by 58 times 100. Which you don't have to do now because it's done there for you. This is out of the textbook. So those are the percentages in the middle now, and in the column on the right. So can you now have a better idea of the difference, if there is one, between men and women in regards to their attitude towards gun control? Is there a difference, whether you can put it into words, there's a difference in the attitude of men and women? Yeah, there is, isn't there? A lot more women than men. A greater proportion of women and men are for having some kind of gun control. So women are in favour of gun control more than men, which you can't get just by looking at the raw numbers. You said they look pretty balanced, but in fact they're not balanced, which is precisely the point. Which is why I thought your answer was interesting, because the numbers are about the same, but in fact it's a higher percentage because less women were asked in the first place. So that's one of the things you have to do, is put them into a percentage. And that's a two-way table. Now, next is another one. Sometimes it says on that heading, sometimes there is no conclusion you can come to. And they gave this table as an example. So why, in this table, is it not possible to come to any conclusion about, in this case, gender attitude towards Sunday racing? It's basically the same, isn't it? 50-50, 44-45, whatever. 50-50, yeah, exactly. So if you see a two-way table, which is what you're going to be doing, looking at two-way tables and seeing what results you can get out of them, having done some survey for you. If you see the numbers are roughly the same, you can't come to any conclusion. Do you need to pause to take notes on that? I'll just run through what we did. So you have two types of numbers. Two-way tables are for categorical data. You should make a note of that. Numbers themselves need to be turned into percentages before they're any use. Percentages are got by doing score divided by total times 100. Sometimes there is no conclusion to come to. So that's the sort of notes you should be taking. And as I said earlier, you can have more than two categories either way. By the way, another thing that I need to tell you is that, do you remember the explanatory and the response variable from yesterday? Explanatory is the one on the horizontal, the response is up the side, X and Y. This is the explanatory, and this is the response this way. So think of that as being the X-axis across there and the Y-axis up there. So these are the explanatory categories, and these are the response categories. So just make a note, this is the EV and this is the RV again, but it's, so that's going that way. Low, medium and high are the responses to the question, after saying what age group are you in. So that's what I mean by an association. In other words, when we say is there an association, it means can you come to any conclusion? That's what it means. Are the variables of age associated in any way with the variables of high, medium and low, whatever the question was? Now, there is a note on there that I'd like you to make sure you've got your graphics calculators tomorrow, please. If you haven't got one, you won't. Not that very stressful. We'll be just doing scatter plots on calculators, but you can pick it up later if you don't have one, but just try and bring it anyway. Keep up with us. And now we're ready for the exercise 1B, I think, which starts off with that question there. Using two-way frequency tables to identify associations between two categorical variables. If I get you to look at that just while I do the roll, then we'll see if we need any help. So we've got 242 students. They've already been turned into percentages, you see. 100, 100. Enrollment status and whether or not they drink alcohol. So the explanatory variable was enrollment status. That's the answer to part A. I've just given you the answer to part A. Did you get it? Which variable is the explanatory variable? Enrollment status. You've got to give the words. This will be like the heading of the x-axis, and that'll be the heading of the y-axis. And these are the tick marks, full-time, part-time, whatever. Is there an association between drinking alcohol and enrollment status? Write a brief report quoting appropriate percentages. Now that's actually to be taken seriously, in that we'd like you to write a sentence as if you were charged with doing a report for your boss. Done this survey, sir, madam. It has been found that, or some words like that. Is there an association? Why not? Numbers are pretty close, aren't they? 80.5, 81.8, 19, 18. It has been found that there is no association between enrollment status and drinking alcohol. In other words, you can't go and pick on all the full-time people because they booze too much, or vice versa, because you've got no evidence to do so. So the secret police can't go around arresting people for drinking, whatever. They haven't got any evidence. So that's kind of an answer, which is like a sentence answer. I think I might have another question on the screen before you need to go to your textbook. Happy with that one? I've got question 3 up, so if you want to do 2 later. There's your numbers. Survey 59, that's 99.9, but you can assume they're percentages. Do you exercise regularly, sometimes, or rarely? What's the explanatory variable? I prefer the word gender myself. What percentage of females exercise sometimes? 54.9. Pretty basic stuff, isn't it? Once you've been told how to. Is there an association between how regularly these students exercised and their gender? Because rarely, sometimes, and regularly, yeah, so it's going up, but the number is going down. So yeah, men are more likely to exercise regularly than women. And it's a bit of a dumb, well, I think it's a dumb question now I think about it, because regularly is the opposite of rarely. It's the same question the other way around. But, okay. So as the